It's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. The other thing is you have to say, why did it take so long? I mean, this takes a long time, can take years to get to this level of danger. So it's a very, very sad situation.
President Trump discussing former President Joe Biden's recent cancer diagnosis at the White House last night. One of Biden's former medical advisors says he probably had cancer for some time. A new book from CNN's Jake Tapper and Axios reporter Alex Thompson is out today. It details the Biden White House cover-up of the former president's mental decline. We didn't know there was also a cover-up of his cancer. Joining me now is Georgia Congressman Richard McCormick, a member of the GOP Doctors Caucus and an emergency room physician. Congressman, how do you see all of this?
Yeah, it's pretty sad. I feel bad for the family, but it's also pretty amazing that a guy who was in such cognitive decline became their nominee for president, that continued to be their nominee in the second term, rather than bowing out gracefully. Somebody who had all the wrong ideas to begin with and then couldn't make a decision. Somebody who might have had to make some of the most important decisions on the fly in America between nuclear nations, whether they be war or huge economic impact decisions. This was their best choice. That should say something about where the Democratic Party is right now.
Well, I mean, it seems like, if you've got a cancer diagnosis and you have prostate cancer, I mean, it's hard to believe that it went from, a very healthy PSA to metastasizing in such a couple of months. So let's assume it's been there. If you know you have that, and you also know you have mental challenges, and yet you're still running for president and you're still running the country and not telling the American people about it. I don't know, that seems like a pretty big scandal.
Yeah, as a doctor, I'm an ER doc by trade. I tell you what, these doctors either were really bad or covering it up. There's only two choices on this. Most likely his PSA was low, which is kind of the indicator of typical prostate cancer, which means it was poorly differentiated, which also means it's very difficult to treat. That means he was having some sort of symptoms, probably urinary symptoms, which I heard recently. Also probably didn't have a very good examination, but they were either covering this up or they're really bad doctors to begin with, because to have stage 4 metastatic disease is hard not to know within a couple months of when his last physical was.
Okay. President Trump is expected on Capitol Hill this morning. Of course, he's there to hopefully persuade some of those holdouts to get the GOP to unify around the big, beautiful bill just ahead of the House's self-imposed Memorial Day deadline. What are you expecting?
Well, I'm excited. First of all, it's always great when the president comes to visit, but we're getting close. All the demands, I'm one of 32 people that wrote the speaker about our conditions for passing this bill, having fiscal conservatism, having savings that are real and tangible. Those things have been met. I hope people don't continue to move the goalposts on that. The president, one of his magic powers is to put real pressure on Congress to do the right thing. How many times have you seen us so close to doing something great and then have somebody continue to press and then lose the deal? It falls apart, and then we have to turn to the Democrats to pass something. This time is the time for us to act, to do something historic. That's why I came to Congress. That's why I'm excited about this bill. Of course, I want to see as much savings as possible, especially with our recent downgrade of our currency. But if we don't get this passed, we put the power back in the Democrats' hands. The president is excellent at putting pressure on people who hold out to get this actually done, and that's his magic power.
Yeah, and you're referring to Moody's downgrading the credit rating of the United States, but the Speaker, Mike Johnson, is meeting with SALT caucus members. He did so late last night, looking to resolve any disagreements within the party about the SALT deduction cap ahead of the Rules Committee markup vote tomorrow. And they're waiting on several estimates from the Congressional Budget Office and the Joint Committee on Taxation. New York Congressman Mike Lawler was here yesterday, a couple days ago, and here's what he said to me yesterday. Mike Lawler, watch this.
When you take property taxes combined with state income taxes, it blows well past the $30,000 cap, which is why this matters so much. And my point at the end of the day is, if no bill passes, the SALT cap goes to unlimited. There's a lot of provisions of the bill that are aimed at helping the middle class. That's why I'm fighting to lift the cap on salt. It is not about the rich. It is very much about the cop and the teacher, who have extremely high property taxes here in New York that we want to provide tax relief to.
Congressman, the other point he made was, look, the blue states, the Republicans in the blue states delivered the majority to the GOP. And if we don't have a higher salt cap in there, then we are facing jeopardy in terms of getting reelected. So how high does he want to take it, do you think?
Well, first of all, I disagree with that premise, and Mike's a friend of mine. But if you think that those people are going to not vote for you, even though you fought for them for what you thought was important for your state, then they have all the wrong motivations to begin with. And quite frankly, having 3 times what you've had in the past is a pretty good deal, but that's what they're saying is insulting. I don't think that carries water with the rest of this nation. When you have states that are blue and they're taxing you to death, vote those people out, because that's what's going to create the majority. That when you have people moving from New York, moving from California, you're going to lose legislative seats because your laws are that bad. Your taxation is that bad. Do the right thing inside your own state. Don't expect the rest of the states to pay for that. Right now, New York's getting $1.06 for every $1 they're putting in the pot. We don't want that to happen because a lot of poor states that don't have the money they have are not getting the money back. So I think getting 3 times what they have right now is a pretty darn good bill, and they should actually take that.
Yeah. So in other words, you're good with them raising the cap to $30,000.
I think that's a compromise. I would rather not have any salt.
Right.
But you know what? I'm
that.
willing to make a compromise to get this across the finish line.
But what do they want? They want at least 50, right?
I've heard 65. I've heard
65.
unlimited for 4 years, as if they're going to phase out 2 Congresses and a different president from now. Let's not talk about 10 years. Let's talk about next year, because that's all that matters. I hate these 10-year estimates because they never come true.
I see. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. We'll be watching President Trump speaking with you and your colleagues at 9 today. Thank you, sir.